Israel's vowing to take out the new leader of Hamas was Yahya Sinwar, the mastermind of the October 7th attack. He's promoted after his predecessor in that role was assassinated in Iran last week. U.S. and its allies trying to head off a larger-scale retaliation by Iran, another retaliation, which, if it happened, might risk spiraling into something akin to an all-out war. Joined now by former IDF spokesperson Jonathan Conricus, now senior fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Good to see you again. Sinwar, I guess I don't know what you would expect from Hamas, but this doesn't exactly seem to be ideal. What do you say?
Nothing with Hamas is ideal, just like nothing with Al-Qaeda or ISIS is ideal. They're a bunch of terrorists. Sinwar is the man who has been running Gaza, running Hamas de facto for a long time. He has been the man making the decisions not to have a ceasefire deal and not to release hostages. So that he has been picked, basically, I don't know which other options they had. It was kind of an obvious thing because most of the other seniors are no longer on this earth and they won't be terrorizing anybody anytime soon.
So he's a new target now for Israel?
No, he's always been a target. He's always
right.
been a very high-ranked target because he is really one of the founding fathers of Hamas. He is an arch terrorist. He has buckets of blood on his hands. From
no, it's fair. So any time there was an opening or intelligence of where this guy is, he would have been taken out
a long time ago.
A long time ago.
The only reason he isn't dead yet is because he's been surrounding himself with Israeli live hostages underground, and that is what has kept him safe. Otherwise, he would have been dead by now.
I want to talk to you about Iran as well, but here's what was said about Sinwar in the State Department briefing today. Matthew Miller, let's watch.
When you think about what has happened to Palestinians in Gaza since October 7th, since the outset of a war that Sinwar decided to start, there have been devastating humanitarian consequences. And Sinwar has been immune from those consequences because he's safe underground.
Yeah, he's in the tunnels, right?
He's in the tunnels, and he's hiding with dozens of Israeli hostages around him because he knows that that's the only thing that will keep him alive. And I know of several Israeli attempts that have been made that have been thwarted in the last moment because there was live intel about the presence of live Israeli hostages that were there as his human shields.
Right, so he would have been taken out, but you didn't want to hit the hostages.
Yeah, and just to explain to people what it means when, I believe that it's a when, Yahya Sinwar will be taken out, that may bring in exactly what Miller spoke about, the end of this horrible suffering that is going on in Gaza and for Israelis, because it might mean that Hamas will stop fighting. He is now the last thing standing between the region and peace.
Nobody behind him?
There are other militant commanders, but no one of his size and gravitas and command. He has a long track record. By the way, he rose to fame and power in Gaza mostly by killing Palestinians, people that he alleged were collaborators with Israel. There's evidence and Palestinian testimonies of him strangling Palestinians with his own hands, actually murdering some of his own people.
What about Iran? We started this week thinking and hearing reports that there might be a large-scale attack launched from Iran on Israel on Monday or Tuesday, and here we are on Wednesday. I mean, what's next here?
It was a very out-of-character, quick statement accredited to the supreme leader of Iran, the dictator Khamenei, who a day and a half after Haniyeh, the head of Hamas, was assassinated in Tehran, he said in his voice, "We are going to strike back."
Yeah.
I found that odd because that's usually not how the Iranians operate. They're cool-headed. They have a cup of tea or water, and they think before they say and act. In this case, they've already committed to acting against Israel.
So what do you read into the fact, or do you read anything into the fact that it hasn't happened yet?
I read into it that I think that they are concerned with how Israel will retaliate against what they will do, because we have the last time that Iran attacked Israel was in April. They fired about 300 missiles and rockets towards Israel, but thanks to an international coalition led by the US, UK, France, and with active participation of Arab countries, that failed. 99% of what the Iranians fired in April didn't reach their targets. So they'll have to do more this time if they want to have any kind of psychological victory over Israel. But the dilemma is, if they do more and if they actually cause damage, that will open up an Israeli retaliation against them, which they are careful about.
I'm sure. Thanks so much for watching. Just go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more
of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.